Hello and welcome. This is your host, William Liu. This is the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway, and this is the post-game reaction podcast live on YouTube. You can find it everywhere else, obviously on Spotify, on iTunes. Rate, review, subscribe to Hello and Welcome Pod. That's not important, man. What's important right now is I'm so fired up. What a game, honestly. Like, you forget just how tense, just how much every single game matters. You lose this game, all of a sudden, you're just up against the ropes. And Canada is in the group of death. I know that Canada has the strongest team, but there is no reason why Canada's got to sweat first game against Giannis, who is apparently just ice cold from free throws now, right? Just knocking down like basically 11 straight free throws at one point against a Greek team that, has a bunch of three-point shooters around them, some good size as well. And a Canada side that, we have so much hope and expectations for. On the other side of hope and expectation is the fact that you actually got to deliver. And man, watching this game, the intensity of it, the thrill of the fact that it came down to what it didn't need to come down to. Canada could have closed this game a lot better down the stretch. They were up 10 courtesy of a Lou Dort 3, then a step back 3 from Shai. That put them up 10 with 3 minutes left, but Canada, unfortunately, even though they got the lead up to 12 eventually, let it come all the way down to 2 points after some very regrettable decisions that had me screaming at my laptop. I don't know why. There's 3 point guards on the floor, including Shai, including Jamal Murray, including Andrew Nembhard, and also RJ, who's, another guard. And instead, Canada inbounds to Trey Lyles, who can't get the ball to one of his guards, and then ends up trying to bring the ball up half and gets stripped. And all of a sudden, Giannis dunks the other way, forcing Canada into a do-or-die situation where they got to score. Otherwise, Greece has a chance to force OT or to win it. That was genuinely one of the dumbest decisions that you could imagine in that scenario. I would understand to some degree if there were no other guards, but there's literally your 3 best point guards and RJ on the floor. Why are you inbounding to Trey Lyles, of all people, who was having a miserable game? But then you have Shai. And the thing with Shai is, like, you could do the best job defending this guy. You could put literally a double team on the ball, which they did for a large part of the, last, 5 or 6 possessions. That kind of got Canada out of the rhythm. You could put a double team on the ball. You can have literally a defensive player of the year winner in Giannis Antetokounmpo rotating over at the rim, contesting with all of his might. And you could still have a bucket because Shai goes with a double crossover at the top, escapes a double team. This is a 2-point game. Shot clock is not turned, or game clock's not, or shot clock's not turned off yet because there's still time left for Greece to have one more possession. Shai goes double behind the back to elude a double team at the top of the floor, drives into the lane, sees Giannis coming, and throws up a floater that somehow miraculously banks in. And, he's just got the perfect touch of it over the shot blocker, and it goes in. 4-point game, and you can just breathe so much freer after that point because Canada had been in a position all game to win it. They were up double digits in the first quarter thanks to their starting lineup, and their starting lineup is not a perfect continuation from last year because they did change it up. They did have Lou Dort in there instead of Kelly Olynyk, but honestly, last year they closed a lot of games with this exact lineup of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Dillon Brooks, RJ Barrett, Lou Dort, and then Dwight Powell. That starting group was awesome anytime they were on the floor together, and I would understand Jordy for wanting to play them together as much as possible. There's a continuity with that group. There's a defensive principle with that group. There's a defensive intensity with that group. There is role definition for everybody. Unsung hero in this game is Toronto's very own, Toronto Raptors' very own RJ Barrett. He was awesome. Finished with 21 points, which I think may have tied him with Shai, or if not tied, just right there with Shai. Let me just double check. Yeah, 23 points for RJ, to lead, Team Canada in scoring. He was awesome over the bulk of the game as well. Got to show him his flowers and everything like that. But Canada had the lead early, and it was really the second unit that, I think struggled, and I think that that's probably what you're going to see a couple of times. There's a lot less continuity with that group. They got to figure it out sort of as the tournament goes. There is obviously a huge wild card in what's Jamal Murray's health. Like, you know what? I've seen other people call RJ Barrett the wild card. That's insulting to RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett's too good to be a wild card. RJ Barrett's consistently been like the leading scorer for this group, even in the warm-up games, right? We're past the point of calling a guy who averaged 20 in the league a wild card, right? What's an actual wild card is Jamal Murray and his health, because in the first half, you saw, him being tentative. You saw sort of just, it doesn't look entirely confident out there. Not the sharpest, right? We've seen Jamal Murray deliver at literally the highest levels. We're talking about an NBA champion. We're not even just talking about an NBA champion. We're talking about an NBA champion who was the second option for his team in the NBA championship. We're talking about a guy who has multiple game winners in playoff settings, right? So, obviously that's what we're kind of comparing Jamal to. And, even putting that aside, I think the fact that they brought him off the bench to start is it's a gutsy call, but I think it's the correct call from Jordy, right? I think the starting group is too good. You don't want to mess with it. You have not only an on-ball defender in Lou Dort who can like harass every single person bringing the ball up past half, and ideally he doesn't pick up 5 fouls as he did today, and which limited a lot of his time. You can see him being frustrated. But you not only have a guy who can guard on ball and just harass people and make it like a living hell to bring it past half court, but then you also have another defender who can you could put on the opposing team's best scorer, no matter who it is. And today, it's Giannis, and you're putting Dillon Brooks on Giannis. And I know Giannis got a lot of points, all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's actually a fault of Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks fought with all his might. You got to salute Giannis. Giannis played an amazing game, and the Greeks team, they did a really good job of putting Giannis in positions to score, whether that was in pick and roll, whether that was sort of ISO from sort of the elbows. But in between moments, Dillon Brooks was fighting this man tooth and nail, including 2 crucial stops in the fourth quarter when the game was hanging right there in the balance. 6 points. Giannis had just sat for like 4 or 5 minutes, and now he's coming back in the game. Is he going to all of a sudden put Greek up ahead? And does Canada respond to that emotionally, having had the lead the whole game? How do they handle that? And they got the ball to Giannis 2 crucial moments. One time, Giannis got a point-blank layup, missed that. But then on the putback, the ball kind of fell to him, but Dillon Brooks fought him tooth and nail to get a loose ball. And eventually there was a tie-up, and the possession arrow was facing Canada's side in this instance, so it was a turnover. In another instance where, Dillon forced Giannis into a shot clock violation. Those are small little things, but ultimately those are huge. You have that benefit of the starting lineup where you have those 2 guys, and then the closest thing you have to athletic, muscle, rebounding. Look, Dwight Powell, the only thing wrong with Dwight Powell is that he's not 6'10" like he should be, right? Because he's more like 6'7". But the guy fights tooth and nail. He is getting in there for offensive rebounds. He is trying to be as physical as he can. He's just undersized. I mean, long-time viewers of Canada basketball have seen Dwight Powell foul out of games simply because of sort of the size. But you have all that, and on top of the fact that you have Shai, who's initiating a lot. You have Dillon, who has created more offensively than he did in this game, but was excellent as a 3-point shooter. Literally at one point in the first half, blew a kiss and sent a 3 over to Dwayne Wade on the bench. I just love that. I mean, like, seriously, they're in France, and these people are such sheep that they're like, oh, let's boo Dillon Brooks in France. What does he have to do with France, right? I get him being booed by the Laker fans. I get him getting booed by Warriors fans. They've been fighting, back and forth a couple of years. But, I even get him getting booed by places where they're primarily Laker fans, like the Philippines, for example, like last year, the World Cup. You're going to boo Dillon Brooks in France? What has he done to you? Seriously, right? And it's not just, oh, well, the Greek fans were there and they were booing. Like, nah, the Greek fans weren't booing Shai like that. I'd be booing Shai way more than I'd be booing Dillon, first off, right? Because Shai is killing my team the whole time. But still, you got Dillon creating, and then you have RJ, who I think fits this system really, really well. There's a lot of the ball rotating over to RJ, and he's attacking with a slight advantage. The thing is, you don't even have to give him a huge advantage. You don't have to do a lot of creating for RJ. He's just got to catch it with a slight half step on the go, and then he makes the most of it. He's getting to the foul line, and that's a big reason why Canada was able to score today, was how much they got to the foul line. I mean, watching all the tune-up games, watching a lot of last year's games, there weren't this many fouls, but I think it was called really tightly to begin this game. Canada got a lot of fouls just trying to pressure the ball. And then on the other end, Greece got a lot of fouls trying to protect the rim, and their bigs are slower, you know what I mean? They're not exactly dominant bigs outside of Giannis. But still, there are a lot of like bang bang calls that I'm sure the Greek, fans or the Greek coaches and players, they may complain about that. Whatever, that's honestly a legitimate complaint to even have. But still, RJ puncturing the paint over and over again, getting to the rim and creating the scoring. And Canada got out to a double-digit lead. Then they turn over to the bench, and I just didn't feel like there was a confident feeling with the second unit. Number one, I didn't feel like Jamal Murray felt like himself, right? Number two, I didn't feel like him and Andrew Nembhard had a really good combination or flow going, because if you're going to give the ball to Jamal and let him clear out, well, Andrew's just kind of off the ball, not really making a lot of plays, right? Like he's barely even touching the ball. Now, I think there's probably needs to be some synergy to be worked in with that, and maybe that's partly coaching. But I also think that like it's hard because the ball's in Jamal's hands, but Jamal's not super confident playing like you have seen him at his very best. So you don't necessarily know what he's going to do. So it's hard to play off of him either, because if he's super aggressive, super confident, he's looking to shoot, then you're probably looking to crash the glass. You're probably looking to set a really hard screen and then try to space out and get out the way, right? But if he's looking to pass, or if he's less confident and he's not touching the paint as much like in the first half, then all of a sudden you're probably looking to come get the ball from him, get an angle to get open, maybe even come get the ball right off of him. You didn't get to see that. But I also thought that like Canada just didn't really have a good rotation down. Like it didn't really feel like any part in the game Kelly Olynyk had like a solid stretch where he could just be on the floor. The thing with Kelly is he's obviously an awesome offensive player, right? He knows when to draw some fouls. He even has clever things like one time Jamal threw him the ball in transition, and Kelly did like a slow down, then pushed the guy out the way, and then went in for like a super easy layup like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was a 1-on-2 layup in transition for a guy who can't really jump. But like those are the things that Kelly can provide you, right? He can also be a good distributor for you if you give him the ball at the top of the floor to attack. But they didn't really use him in any of those ways. And then I think on the defensive end, that's where you got to cover for both Jamal and for Kelly. Well, all of a sudden, you start to get into these weird compromises that you got to do defensively, right? Especially because Greece came in with a very, clear game plan, at least with the starters, at least with Giannis in the game. Maybe with Giannis out the game, they kind of just did whatever. Like it wasn't exactly like Greece had a great half-court offense in this one, outside of giving the ball to Giannis. But like, at least with Giannis on the floor, they had a very clear idea how they wanted to play. So it's just hard to sort of compromise your defense for both those guys at once. So, I think you saw Jordy have to shift this rotation around. I mean, this was by no means an easy game to manage. Obviously, with Giannis on that one end, on number two, with how sort of like tight the whistle was on both ways, too. I'm not complaining about the whistle as a Canadian fan. I mean, there was a very questionable call down the stretch there. Where Giannis was just pressuring Jamal in a 3-point game, trying to get a steal, and they gave the foul, and Jamal went to the foul line, knocked down both, and it was game over. But like, yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's going to be a difficulty trying to manage like the roles for this team, because the only guy I feel like that has a consistent idea what he needs to be doing every single game is Nickeil. Nickeil is continuing the on-ball pressure from Lu Dort. He's Lu Dort's sub, and he is going to come in and he is going to hound the ball. Now, similar to Lu, he's going to be a questionable three-point shooter. Like there was a stretch there, I think in the third quarter, where they got the ball to Nickeil back-to-back in the corner, same spot, same location, and he missed both open corner threes. So there's that. But like, realistically, he's going to come in and pressure the ball. I think Andrew would have a better idea of what he's doing, but he's got to compromise for the fact that it depends on how Jamal's feeling. If Jamal's feeling aggressive, Andrew's kind of doing nothing, right? If Jamal's not feeling aggressive, then Andrew's got to cook, but he's not necessarily the guy who gets the ball to start the possessions. And then I think the bigs and the wings, that's where it's like, if you just had Andrew Wiggins, if you just had like one more bigger wing who can be physical, who be more on the defensive end, maybe you could look at Melvin Ejim eventually, but I do feel like a lot of the times that, like, I mean, come on, he's the 12th guy on this roster right now, and Jordy already used 11. So, you probably have to compromise a little bit. It could be Trey Lyles, Kelly, and Kem Birch if you're going up against a bigger team with, like, less guards to worry about. But, of course, that introduces problems of its own. Nevertheless, whenever they go back to their starters, they're great. And that's what happened because Canada brought their starters back in towards the end of the first half, and that's where once again RJ, Dillon going to the rim, Shai getting his game off, even against double teams, he's making a huge impact, and they built another double-digit lead. And then Greece comes back and they chip away. They get it down to 6 points, but then of course in the fourth quarter when it looked like the game was going to be over, that's where Shai was able to really, take his game to another level. He got a little bit lucky. He got the ball stripped away from him, but that reset the dribble, and that allowed him to kick it out to Lou Dort for a huge three. That pushed it from a 4-point game to a 7-point game. And again, the Greeks had been there at 4 for a long time. So that's a big hit emotionally, because you feel like you got 2-3 possessions to go from a 4-point game down to a 2-point game or a 1-point game. That's a huge opportunity. Instead, Canada comes up with a couple stops, and they're able to get the lead back up to 7, and then Shai with the step back 3, which outside of his again, double crossover, floating over the top of Giannis, bank in a 2-point game to make it a 4-point game. Obviously that was the play of the game, but I think for me that was the other play of the game, where it's just like, timeout, we got to recuperate because this guy is just too good. But Canada built 3 separate 10-point leads, and that's where we got to credit the Greece team. This team is not just Giannis. I mean, it is Giannis in terms of he's the guy who can generate advantages. Nobody else on that team does, but they play good, solid team basketball around him. They had a clear strategy. They knew what they were gonna do. They fought, they scrapped. Obviously, they had disadvantages. It's funny because a guy like Thomas Walkup, if you're not watching European basketball, he's a pretty prominent player. But the scouting report, for people who don't necessarily tap in like that, is he's really, really good defensively. That's kind of his role. He's not a huge 3-point shooter. That's probably the big weakness. You saw him airball multiple catch and shoot threes tonight. That is not necessarily maybe not airballing, but it's not the strength of his game. But defensively, he's actually excellent. But you would never know that when you watch him against Shai. Shai just did such an amazing job of getting his game off, and it's stuff like, in the first quarter, Shai's isolated baseline one-on-one, late shot clock, ends up stepping back, basically in the corner 3 there, stepping back for a long 2. The closeout's too hard. He gets fouled in the process, and he makes the and 1. It kind of bounces in, and he's on the floor lying down with 2 hands behind his head, being like, yo, this is easy. This is fun, right? A lot of pressure. Canada's back in the Olympics on the men's side for the first time since 2000. Right? Think about that. There's probably lots of people watching this, listening to this right now, who weren't even born by 2000. Or they were too young, like me, to remember 2000. Or they were just new to the country or come in that time, right? That's such a long time, and there's so much buildup, there's so much anticipation. And Shai, the whole game, the pressure just doesn't get to him, right? Oh, it's a 4-point game. The Greeks are, making this comeback in the fourth quarter. I got the ball stripped away from me. Let me just calmly slide it over to Lou Dort for 3. Let me just step back for 3, force them to timeout. And then, we're choking like crazy down the stretch. Oh, it's a 2-point game now. I have to do something. Boom, double crossover, go to the rim. I mean, I'm telling you, this is the experience that you missed. If you didn't watch the World Cup last year, which I can't blame you, because the World Cup was literally at 4 a.m., 4:30 a.m. multiple times. The amount of times I had to set my alarm clock and wake up with no daylight outside, but full of excitement and full of energy to watch the Canada team. That was last year. If you didn't watch that last year, you didn't get this, because this is what he basically did against Spain, against Slovenia, against USA in the end, in key games over and over again, killing France in the first game. So yeah, just a thrilling experience. But seriously though, this is how it's gonna be. Canada isn't. I think for me, Canada doesn't have the continuity for the second unit, nor do they have just explosive firepower scoring wise across the board that they can build huge leads and just run away with the game consistently, especially not at this level. You look at the next opponents, it's going to be Australia, and it's going to be Spain. Those are not easy games. Maybe the last one will be easier, depending if Spain loses again. They're basically out because they lost to Australia today. Huge game from Jock Landale, and Josh Giddey's been knocking down threes. I mean, another reason to sweat for coming up in a couple days, but this is kind of how it's going to be. But I think that what's really cool in these games is, and this is probably a feeling that you probably wouldn't have gotten as a Raptor fan. I know this, for me, at least speaking for me, I never really felt oh yeah, we got a closer, so any close game, I feel confident. You know what I mean? It's all right, it's a 1-run ball game, but I can bring Mariano Rivera out of the bullpen, and I can hear Enter Sandman, and he's gonna throw 15 cutters, and the game's gonna be over. That's how I feel with Shai. That only other time I felt that was when we had Kawhi. I don't know, maybe Vince was like that. I don't know. To be honest, again, like I said, 2000 was a little too early. I was just coming into the country at the time, so I wasn't worried about basketball or the Raptors. I was worried about ESL. But seriously, it's it's an amazing feeling to have the closer. Like it's late game. I'm like, all right, on one end, it's gonna be Giannis having to shoot some key free throws that eventually. And even with Giannis, like I said, he made 11 straight free throws. Honestly, I appreciate Giannis for shortening his free throw routine. No more breathing exercise. This ain't therapy. No more like standing at the foul line for 15 freaking seconds, right, without any official calling him out for the fact that it's actually an obscure violation, but he's taking forever. No more like miming the free throw. It's just he takes a step, he takes a breath, and he shoots it like a regular person. And honestly, that's a credit. That's a benefit to all of basketball because, if you're going to watch a game of Giannis, he's going to be in the foul line 15 times. I can't spend, 5 minutes watching him breathe, right? So, and that improved rhythm, I think, is actually helping his actual free throw shooting because it's giving him less time to think about it, more time to just shoot it. So he made 11 straight at one point. But on their end, I'm like, I know Giannis is not a closer like that. I'm not saying Giannis is like not clutch or whatever, but he's a big. Like bigs just don't close in the same way. And when it got down to it, the most important 2 free throws, he missed the first one. That could have made it a 2-point game, and Canada has to score once again. Maybe Shai pulls another, magic trick out of his bag, but instead he misses the first one. I think he made the second one, and it was a 3-point game. But still, like that was, that's the difference. Like you have Shai, like you feel that confidence, and he's got support around him, right? So. I'm going to take some questions as well. I know Alex, the producer here, has been in the background taking questions. I know he's probably reminded me a couple times to ask people to take questions, but, I just get too hype up. You don't understand. Like, I'm just, like, screaming in my house for this team. But that's just how it makes you feel. Like, I was so happy with how the World Cup experience went last year. And I know that Canada came up short in terms of getting gold. They did get bronze. And it was, like, a huge step for the national program. Arguably, like, their best result in modern memory, actually inarguably their best result in modern memory, but like, you never know if it's going to continue over, but this group, I'm so excited to watch, the rest of their progress. And, yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. I promise you, like, we're going to be doing a lot more screaming, in our living rooms. We might even got to put together a live show. Let me know if you want to see a live show where we can do a live watch party somewhere in downtown Toronto and get together for some of these games, because like, these kind of feelings, this kind of experience, like you really got to feel it together. It's for me, for sure, the most patriotic that I feel is when I watch, Team Canada play basketball. And or honestly, even shouts to Canada Soccer. I know they're in a bad moment right now with the drones, and I know everything is being overreacted to a degree that feels like a little nauseating. Even though they did something wrong for sure, but like whatever. But like the moments watching Team Canada Soccer, Team Canada basketball, like it's just so good to experience those together. And yeah, I'm honestly like on a high basically, and I'm trying to come down right now. But seriously, it was such a great game. And last thing before I go to questions, actually, I just want to again, like, I know I didn't fully give as much time to it, so I just want to talk about RJ. I just think that like for me, RJ is just playing like in such a good groove. And even last year at the World Cup, I remember there were certain games where you just didn't necessarily trust that he was going to do the right thing. I mean, he eventually played really well, including in the bronze medal match where they beat USA. RJ had like, I think 26 in that one. He like scored really well. It was pretty efficient, but it was more up and down with him, right? And to me, it was like, there were moments where Dillon Brooks were obviously more prominent. But since coming over to the Raptors and extending that over to the Olympics, like he's in this really, really great rhythm here where, he looks explosive to me, but it's just like, anytime RJ uses less than 2 dribbles, it's a great shot and he's at the rim, or it's an open 3. And it's stuff like he knocked down a baseline jumper, for example, on a hard closeout. He stepped in, knocked down a baseline jumper. It's stuff like where he catches it slightly on the move, slightly on a curl, and he's just 1-2 dribbles to the basket. It's in transition where, he's, even if he's not going to the rim, he's forcing a foul, which honestly in this game, you really saw it, right? Like even that little bit of attrition to get a couple more fouls so that you get yourself into the bonus a little bit earlier, stuff like that. He is just like, he's so good at reading, a slight body positions or where his defender's leaning. It's not quite like Shai because he doesn't have like the 4-wheel steering that Shai has, where it's like Shai looks like he's like in the Matrix or some shit. Like he's so like, it's crazy watching Shai, right? He can go any angle, any direction, and any time, and he seems to have like 6 shots available to him. Like just look again, like the double crossover and then a floater off the glass over Giannis, right? Like that's enough said. But RJ, he does do an amazing job of reading sort of where it is, and then like perpetuating and like sustaining the momentum of a drive. He knows how to get himself to the basket. He gets a little bit lower than you would expect him to for a guy who can explode up and dunk, but then he stretches and gets his way to the foul line, and he gets his way to the rim. Like, he's just at the rim all game, like all game. And it's not necessarily one-on-one, although sometimes you can get it one-on-one too, but he's just found such a great rhythm. And it's like, I think that's, to me, that was one of the great joys of watching the World Cup last year, was in addition to what Canada did in terms of getting the bronze, it was, you saw you saw like a player figuring it out in Dillon Brooks, and it was beautiful, right? I mean, Dillon already did sign for like a 4-year, $80 million deal anyway before that in free agency to Houston. So clearly there was some vision on the Houston Rockets part to even sign him. But to me, I was really happy for him personally, because it was like he had found his role. He found the right balance. It's not so different than the sort of the flawed version that he was doing before, but he found himself, and he found a great way to move forward and just like play freely and play effectively, efficiently, whatever you want to call it, but like productively. And with RJ coming over to the Raptors last year, that's what happened with him there too. And of course, it didn't necessarily matter because like the Raps were like such a mess last year. But to see him continue that for, the duration of the season, at least until obviously, the year went to shit. Literally for him, I'm rooting for him just and his whole family on a personal level, right? Because of the tragedy that they suffered with him losing his brother last year, right? And this is nothing to do with his play. I'm just like off the court. Obviously, I'm rooting so hard for him just to sort of battle through that. But to see him again, just like find a really strong like role for himself in basketball, and it translating to multiple teams, because that to me is like, if you can do it for the Raptors, that might be Raptors dependent, but you're doing it for Team Canada as well now too, and you're the leading scorer in this game, and you're super efficient. Like, what was RJ tonight? I mean, he was 23 points, 8 of 13 from the field, 6 of 6 from the foul line. First off, 6 of 6 from the foul line. That's great, because that's the one thing is he's been missing free throws, and Canada needed to make every free throw in this one. Both teams took 32 free throws, but Canada made 28 of 32, and Greece made 24 of 32. Right, and it came down to some key misses in the fourth quarter with Nick Kostas, which, I guess shout out to former Memphis Grizzlies guard Nick Kostas, and I guess Giannis missing that one in the fourth quarter. But like that, it's basically a one possession game down the stretch there. That was huge. So RJ making his foul shots is massive. But I think he's found his role, and now he can play more like freely, consciously, whatever you want to call it. But I'm just really happy for RJ, and I'm thrilled to have him on Team Canada and on the Raptors, because you need this type of scoring. I know he's not necessarily always creating for himself, but within the offense, and just give him just a little bit, and he's making the most of it. So I'm going to take the questions. Then I'm going to go to 3 stars, Gerald Henderson Award winner, all that kind of stuff. Producer Alex, toss me some questions from the comments. Here we go. From Hey Kool-Aid. How do you feel about the Australia matchup? Look dominant against Spain. Yeah, I tried to peep it a little bit. I'm not going to lie to you. I just landed from San Francisco last night at like 1:30 a.m. So like it was hard to wake up early this morning to watch that game. I will watch it in more depth, but I did catch the highlights and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, like I mentioned, man. Well, first off, Australia just, they throw a lot of like wings at you. It feels like just constant stream of wings. It won't be as many bigs, although I guess you didn't really feel the impact of Greece's bigs outside of them knocking down some corner threes, which is like, oh look, their bigs can shoot threes. It's like, cool. It's still, I mean, come on, man. It's still like Georgios Papagiannis. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's whatever. But like, yeah, I mean, they got a lot of wings. They play really hard. My thing is, especially having I watched the Australia versus USA game. Shout out to Stadium Swim once again at Circa. I watched that literally out of my window of my hotel room. I was just watching out at it. But he looks super confident. He's been knocking down his threes, which obviously has been a big limiting factor in his game. Part of the reason why he got traded from OKC in the first place. And he's been going to the basket, and there's a physicality there. But yeah, I mean, I think Canada actually has the type of wing defenders to sort of cope with. I think for me, Giddey is the biggest threat. I think FIBA Patty Mills is always a threat, but I do think that Canada has like strong perimeter defenders to sort of like switch out and attack them. It's not like Canada's bigs outside of Kelly, maybe like they're not all like in deep drop or anything like that. So I think that you're okay with that. Some of their bigger wings like Dyson Daniels can sort of like take it strong to the hoop as well. But yeah, I mean, they come at you with some depth. But I actually think Canada matches up really well with Australia. We'll see sort of what it is. And also, once again, you feel more confident in a close game if it's Australia versus Canada. And maybe this is famous last words, but like we got Shai, man. It's like, so if it gets close down the stretch, whether we're down, whether we're up, trying to protect something or trying to, come back, I feel better about it. So I think it'll be an easier matchup than Greece, because I just think that Canada had no answer for what Giannis wanted to do. And it felt like, especially because Greece knocked down a couple threes, especially because I felt like tonight Canada, when they helped off the top of the floor, I thought it was okay. But I thought Greece did a great job of positioning Giannis to catch it either at the elbow or just below the elbow a little bit. So his one-on-ones and he would position a strong side, like a shooter in the strong side corner, so like on the same side as Giannis. And so when the help came from that side, Giannis was able to really, really find that corner shooter. And I felt like the corner threes, catch and shoot, were the ones that were killing Canada. I think the ones from the top of the floor weren't as much. But then again, like between, like you look at the fact that literally like all three of Canada's players, like who have muscle, right? If you look at the muscle on this team, it's Lou Dort, it's Dillon Brooks, it's Dwight Powell. All three of those guys fouled out. Like I don't think that will be the case against Australia, but Australia plays really fast as well too. Yeah, it's not gonna be easy. And then of course there's probably gonna be Joe Ingles coming off the bench and trolling you and making you a little sick, Duop Reith. I mean, I don't know. When we hit Duop Reith, it's time to hit another question, Alex. I know you're shaking your head right now hearing Duop Reith analysis on a Saturday. Next one. This is D from North. I'm betting Jamal going to be ruled out for next game. Something wrong with him. Look, trust me. Like I have a lot of question marks with Jamal too, right? Like this is why when I previewed the Olympic run with Oren a couple days ago, one of the big questions I wanted to get to was literally the first question to get to is like, what's up with Jamal Murray? I think he's clearly rusty, right? I think that they're clearly trying to ramp him up. I think for me, more than anything else, you could say that, but I don't know if Jamal fully trusts his body right now to play like super, super aggressive. I mean, you look at the level of play in this one, right? Guys diving on the floor all the time. Dillon Brooks flying out of bounds. Lou Dort flying out of bounds. Dwight Powell getting eaten like 5 elbows per game in the face. Somehow he fouls out every time. Like, it's physical. It's aggressive. Like, you got to be in there. And there's one play for me where it was in the fourth quarter. Jamal had come into the game because I believe Dwight Powell was the first one to foul out. Yeah, Powell was the first guy to foul out. And Giannis had that layup at the rim. He smoked it a little bit. And then Dillon fought him for the loose ball. And it kind of like bounced to the other side. And Jamal had a hand on it, but he couldn't secure it. Shai was there too, and another Greece player. And the Greek player ultimately dove on the ball and sort of like got it. And to me, it was just like small things like that where it's like, honestly, I wanted Jamal to dive on that ball because he was closer to it. And, I again, like he could have dove for it. And even when it was on the ground, he didn't dive for it on the tie up on the ground. Now, whatever, it's didn't change the impact of the game. In fact, Canada did get the jump ball anyway. And, the possession error was in our favor. So we got the ball. But stuff like that where it's just like, you got to be able to be super aggressive. I looked at it in the first half. I don't think Jamal Murray touched the paint once. Right, with the ball off a live dribble. Second half, though, that's where I'm optimistic because he started playing more and more like himself. Like, look, maybe against like the very, very best in the world, you're going to need Jamal Murray to be his very best. You need everybody at his very best. Like last year against Team Canada, RJ played his best game. Dillon Brooks played his best game. Shai played, just his regular game. And they were able to beat a team like Team USA. I don't think that you need Jamal to be like superstar Jamal Murray, like before those kind of games. But I do think I need him to be like a productive bench creator because I'm not seeing that from Nembhard and I'm not seeing that from Nikhil, right? So I do think that you just need a guy who can create some offense for you. Like tonight, especially in the second half, that's exactly what you need from Jamal. A pull-up jumper here or there, getting into the paint and dumping it off to RJ. Like just touching the paint in general, right? Driving in for, I think, a little floater or whatever. Like, just small things like that. Like, I'm not even asking for 20-point explosion, like, hitting game winners AD versions of Jamal Murray. I just want to see, like, 12 points, 4 of 6 from shooting from the field, knocking down some ice-cold free throws like he did today, not turn the ball over. I think that's where the physicality, like, the guys are all over you in these sort of, like, in these kind of games. You got to be strong with the ball. Things like that where you're willing to take a little bit of contact. And I know it's because, he's not, 100% healthy. I know that it's because he's newer to the group. I know that the contract situation with the Nuggets is still sort of unresolved. And the Nuggets clearly are in a position where they're cheaping out because they keep letting guys walk off their rotation. I don't think they'll let Jamal walk, but, I think if they gave Jamal everything he wanted, he'd be signing. Uh, yeah, I mean, still though, like I think that second half Jamal gave Canada what they needed. First half, he just really had to ease into it. So hopefully next game he doesn't have to ease into it. And again, like eventually there will be moments where we're going to need superstar Jamal. I still think that those moments can come, but yeah, I don't think it's gonna be ruled out or anything, man. I mean, like if you unless you're actually injured, you're gonna play. This is not NBA regular season right now. This is like literally playoffs right from the get go. This was from T Meyer 16. Shai showed up for big moments, but was too passive throughout for me. Need him being a lot more aggressive. See, I think that's where I disagree on that because I think Canada's offense was fine over the balance of the game. I mean, like outside of them like freezing up for the last like 3 minutes in the fourth quarter, they were fine to me. I think down the stretch they knew how to get Shai the ball. So you notice a couple times what they would do is they wanted to get Shai a good advantage on one of their weaker defenders, so probably like Nick Calathis or one of their guards or one of their wings, and they want to get Giannis away from the rim. So what they would do is they would bring up I think because Greece was switching a lot. And that was one of the issues that Canada really needed to work on was attacking switching from the USA game, for example. But they would bring up like Dwight Powell, who was getting guarded by Giannis, to screen for the ball. They would switch, so Giannis would be on Shai, which obviously is not an advantage. But then they'd bring up another guard or like another wing, basically, to then create another switch. Guys, someone who's a shooter, let's say like Dillon Brooks, for example, comes over screens. They switch again. Now all of a sudden, Giannis is guarding a shooter on the perimeter, and then Shai has a weaker defender to attack. They were doing stuff like that, which was really smart because that gives him an easier defender to attack, and it occupies Giannis off ball tied to a shooter, stuff like that. But I mean, that's like fairly standard too. Like we see that all the time in the NBA. I think what happened in this game was Greece did a really good job of pressuring, of sort of attacking Shai, and I thought he did a good job distributing. And if it was a game where other guys couldn't score, like it's not like Canada was so cold from three, they did a decent job. Um, RJ was cooking, Dillon Brooks was cooking. I think what really took Canada out of the rhythm offensively for a stretch there was just their bench wasn't that particularly strong. So I don't know necessarily what Shai can do about that. But like I also I mean, like that's the thing. You can trust that like he's gonna turn it on when he needs to, And it's not like he wasn't aggressive or balanced in this game. Like there's lots of plays where he's involved, even defensively too, man. Like Shai getting deflections and stuff like that, getting on the break. One thing I saw a friend of the program, Assad Alvi point out, and it's something I really appreciate about Shai because last year in the Olympics, you saw him have multiple games where he had double digit rebounds. Shai does a really good job of like knowing and being diligent in crashing the glass defensively. Like he really comes in and cleans up because he's obviously a guard. He's probably at the top of the floor most times, but he has a good sense of where the ball is going to go. He's obviously very athletic and he's very long. And especially for Team Canada, like they're usually having to put 2-3 guys jumping at the rim just to make up for their size, a disadvantage. So there's not always like the strongest box outs either. And it's usually Shai who has to sort of swoop in over the top to get the rebound to secure it. So yeah, he's engaged throughout the game. I mean, like, I don't know, man. It's fine. Like, I actually don't think that you need to play iso ball Shai the whole game. That's just not how FIBA basketball is played most times, and I don't think it's the most effective way to use Shai. Let's take two more, and then we'll get to we'll get to the 3 stars. Alex, I'm feeling great, man. Oh, we got $5. Yo, I didn't know you could give money to this. What? Yo, what? You could give money to this? Okay. All right. Shouts to Top Shot ESLA. Shouts to the $5, man. Damn, that's sick. Okay. Any progress on Ramen with Utah? Yes. More live shows. Hoophead's still underserved in Toronto. Absolutely. Yeah, seriously. Honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that I've been away for the last 2 weeks between Vegas and then going to see family in the Bay, I think we would have sort of put together some more watch party plans. But yeah, clearly I think I just want to create community spaces where people can like come together and enjoy a fandom of basketball. Obviously around the Raptors, obviously around Team Canada, and yeah, let's do more of it. I mean, I know we're doing this virtually right now, but like it hits even harder when we're in person at a potential venue. But we got some plans in the works. We'll try to put it all together, and when we have something concrete, we'll announce it. And obviously, we'll try to make it accessible. We'll try to make it somewhere we can get as many fans in as possible. Obviously in a safe manner, right? But absolutely. And yeah, then you can slap me $5 in person. But any progress with Ramen on Utah? No, Utah is very busy right now. He's gone back to Japan. I know he talked about he sort of struggled with sort of his confidence playing on offense and in the NBA, and you can sense that a little bit with Utah. Like some of it is just how like without another way to say it, like this sort of like Asian politeness of like a kind of an excuse me kind of thing. Like, but yeah, I mean, I felt like he was always such a confident player when he played for the national team, that it just didn't necessarily translate over. But still, I'm happy for him. He gets to go back home, and yeah, he's playing for Japan. Unfortunately, Japan lost to Germany by 20. Shouts to friend of the program, Dennis Schroeder, 12 assists with that group. I mean, again, in terms of guys who are like FIBA, they take it to a different level and they're almost a different person. Yeah, FIBA Dennis is no joke, man. I mean, like you got to give they're literally the reigning World Cup champions, man. I seen Dennis Schroeder make himself a ring from Benny the Jeweler in person. That says, Dennis Schroeder, Finals MVP. This is just a $20 replica ring, to be clear, of the Raptors championship. So this is nothing to flex. It's literally peeling paint. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's where we're at with Utah. But he's much love to Utah. He even gave us an interview from Phoenix early this year, and yeah, much rizzing was done in that one. Or, as people in the comments might have pointed out, it could be a little glazing as well. But like, listen, there's just too many terms, man. What happened to just being nice and complimentary? That's it's a lot of nice complimentary conversations. Let's take one more, Alex, before we go to the 3 stars. Wow, $10? Where's this money even going? All right, we got to talk about this after we do this. But anyway, this one from Janice, Raptor fan. Awesome W from Canada today. I've been waiting to support the Hello and Welcome podcast. Thank you. Thank you as well. Tell all your friends. Honestly, it was surreal kind of just like running to people in Vegas. Obviously, there's lots of basketball fans there, but lots of people coming up and saying hi and recognizing the show. Lots of love from the U.S. media as well, which is, I know every Raptor fan wants that approval and wants those nice words from the American press. But it was nice to get those in person. Like even in the Bay, man, even in just walking, the Fremont experience, man. Alex knows this. We're just walking through like just a nasty ass crowd in Vegas, which is like half the places in Vegas. It's just a nasty ass crowd, and people just stopping and being like, "Yo, love the program, man." I was, yeah, even in San Francisco, running to people at like, tourist spots basically, but seeing like their version of like St. Lawrence Market and running into fans, like literally on the WestJet flight home yesterday. The server comes over and asked me what I wanted to drink, and then he handed me like some water and a cookie, and he's like, so what do you think the Raptors are gonna do this year? And I'm like, God damn it, man, I'm here in sweatpants. I'm tired as hell, but yeah, seriously, it's an awesome feeling, and I appreciate all the support. I mean, this is this has always been a community operation for people who followed it for a long time, and none of it's possible without you guys. So I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate people sending in money. Like, what's going on? There's no better way to compliment a Chinese person than just throwing random fives at them. So, yeah, well, more details on the live show. But for now, let's wrap up. 3 stars from tonight's game. First star for me is obviously got to be Shai. I know he only went 5. Okay, I hear the point to some degree because he really only took 10 shots, but 5 of 10 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3, including that step back. That was so sick, man. 9 of 10 from the foul line, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, 21 points. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, man, just a goddamn Canadian icon, man. Shouts to Shai, coming up super huge, coming up super clutch. And very hyped to see his next performance. I love his overall demeanor as well, the confidence. Again, like I as a longtime Raptor fan, maybe just because we've been deprived, but like, damn, like you can't feel that confident about like DeMar down the stretch. You can't feel that confident about Kyle down the stretch. God knows we weren't that confident watching Kyle, like Fred and Pascal down the stretch. Scotty got a lot of that clutch gene, but he doesn't have the go-to move yet, so you don't necessarily know what he's gonna do. But it was Kawhi that you felt that like, oh yeah, don't worry, close game, Kawhi's got this, right? 89, or 90. You got to watch out for the inbounder here, and they inbounded Kawhi, and we see Joel cry. Like it's literally the perfect thing ever, and that's that feeling I get with Shai though. Like, and maybe it's just you got to get an MVP level player to do that, but like, damn, it feels nice, man. It feels like that must be how you feel when you're rich or something. Like you're just walking around with like, I can buy this, I got this. Shouts to Shai, man. He got us for real. Your second star, get that to RJ. Love his game. compliment him quite a bit in this show, but we're going to keep doing that. 23 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, 8 of 13 from the field, 6 of 6 from the foul line, knocked down a 3 in the first quarter as well. This is basically what he does for the Raptors. Like, it's literally the exact same stat line. And to be able to translate that over to a different style of game, right? Obviously between NBA game and FIBA game, to a different team as well. Like, it's not a guarantee. Like, you look at Jamal, for example. I don't know Jamal's not the perfect example because he's, like, banged up or whatever. But, like, it's not the same Jamal that you see with Denver versus what you see here. So that I just want to say that in compliment to RJ, that he's able to, port that over. To me, it shows that his game is clearly maturing and evolving before our eyes. And, people eventually catch up, but I think us in Toronto were the first ones to look at it and see it and, really, really appreciate it. And then your third star, I mean, it's Dillon Brooks. I don't even think that there was another third star candidate, quite frankly. But yeah, Dillon Brooks, 14 points, 6 rebounds, and assists, a steal, just fighting like crazy. 4 of 9 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3, 3 of 4 from the foul line, 6 rebounds. Just, like the only thing that kind of cut off his game was the fact that he fouled out. But every time Dillon Brooks is on the floor, I feel confident, I feel great. And just hopefully he doesn't foul out next game. Your Gerald Henderson Award winner. I mean, it's so funny watching Greece's box score. This is no offense to Greece. Like, I really admired how they played. But like 34 points from Giannis, and then 3 from Georgios Papanikolaou, 5 from Thomas Walkup, 3 from Nick Kalathis. They got like 5 points from Mitoglou off the bench, 9 points, 3 points, 0 points. Like, it was just Giannis. So it was Giannis, and then also Kostas Papanikolaou, who longtime viewers would know him from the Houston Rockets. Shouts to, I guess, Daryl Morey. Never mind, actually, I take that back. But yeah, the Kostas Papanikolaou for Greece. He had 17 points. Was making a couple of plays, attacking a couple of closeouts, knocking a couple down, a couple threes. It was like, but it's basically just Giannis. And yeah, you overcome this kind of performance. And you got the first win. Now you get to like take like a short breath, I guess, and you're right back at it. In terms of people watching along, so the women will play on Monday against France at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. So we'll be tapped into that. We'll be tapped in, obviously, Tuesday, 7:30 a.m. You got to wake up a little early for that one. But 7:30 a.m., Canada's going to play Australia on the men's side. That's going to be a really, really tough game. If Canada beats Australia in that game, you feel really, really good about them getting out of the group stages. And again, you feel really good in general because this is a damn hard group stage. After that, you'll see the women play Australia the following day at 7:30 a.m. So just, make sure you wake up in like proper time like a regular human. And then, August 2nd, I believe that's a Wednesday. Maybe that's a Thursday. No, that's a Friday? Jesus, I don't even know. But yeah, it's Friday versus Spain. Canada plays 10:15 a.m. Get to see Sergio Scariolo. Get to see Juancho Hernan-Gomez, Willie Hernan-Gomez, Lorenzo Brown. Lots of former Raptors on that one. Really, really fun game. So thanks everyone for listening. Honestly, thanks for people who are throwing money at the stream. I didn't even know that was a thing. And let us know, of course, if you want to see a live watch party together. Probably won't do it for the group stages, but I think by the time we get out to hopefully the knockout rounds for both the men and the women, let's set those up and let's have a really good time, because like the Olympics are like the biggest party in sports outside of the World Cup potentially, and it's best to watch those together. That's like one of the best things about like watching the Euros. Like I live in like, I live in a predominantly Portuguese neighborhood here, like close to St. Clair in Toronto, and just seeing all the bars like full of fans for the Euros. Like, let's get that feeling for basketball, because I feel like we have that exact same support. We just don't have that same infrastructure, and whatever we can do to help like actually set up the infrastructure, I want to do it. So thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for listening. And yeah, you've been watching the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway.